right. Let's go ahead and get started, guys. Thanks everyone for taking the time to meet with us. I appreciate it. Um, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Jacob. I'm the CEO of Level, and I'm excited to kind of dive deep with you today on patching. I'll let Derek and Jason introduce themselves.
Sweet. Yeah, my name is Derek Schultz. I'm an account executive here. I'll be moderating the chat, going through the webinar chat and the Q&A. Occasionally pausing Jacob if we need to. Otherwise, we'll save Q&A for the rest of the chat. If anybody's got any follow-up questions post webinar, feel free to reach out. I'm always available. So yeah, nice to see everybody. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Shavy. I'm one of the founders and the COO of Level. Excited to jump in. Come from an extensive MSP background, and excited to talk to MSPs and help them grow and automate. So, yeah, excited for this webinar.
Awesome. I didn't mean to skip over you, Quentin. Do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Oh, no worries. Hi guys, I'm Quentin. You might see me answering support tickets and as you hit up support. So I'm here to just answer questions as the webinar goes on.
Awesome. All right. So here's kind of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to start with just covering why are we getting rid of patch policies, and then we're going to dive into the basics of patching with automations. We'll start with building like a consolidated policy where you're able to patch all operating systems in one unified automation. And then we're going to dive into some more advanced concepts where we're going to build narrowly defined patch policies for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and do specific things that we might want to do during those patch windows, like create restore points, backups, that kind of stuff. And then finally, we're going to dive into handling exceptions and overrides when you might have certain groups of clients or certain groups of devices that you need to patch on a different schedule, or you need to kind of have different policies around. I do want to kind of dive in, since most of you guys are Level users already. I want to dive into like what's new, what's coming out, what you can expect to see, and give you a sneak peek. As of today on our website, we have a new resource library that is live, and we're going to be constantly adding new automations, monitors, and scripts to this library where you'll be able to just import them directly into your account. The neat thing here is as we build, one of the services we offer to our customers is building automations and writing scripts for them. So as we create really beneficial things for our customers, we'll share them to the library. But you as our users can also submit your own resources to the library to help contribute and save other users time. So this is really going to grow over the coming weeks and months, and you should see an email about this probably later this week. Next, by popular demand, requested on almost every client call that we have, is the ability to brand remote control and user approval notifications. And this is going to be coming in early February, if maybe even this week. So really soon we'll be able to see that, and I know that'll make a lot of you guys happy. Another very popular feature that we get requested is the ability to store files associated with automation so that you can then reference those files. And this is going to be also coming out in February. So long gone are the days of downloading files through a script. You'll be able to just reference them directly here from this file storage area. One more feature that will be coming in either late February or early March is going to be reporting. And this is going to really be our first step toward having solid reporting. So we're going to start with a general like hardware report. Then we're going to have a security report that'll help you understand the overall security posture, patch posture of your endpoints. And then finally, an insights report. This is something that hopefully you'll be able to export, share with your clients, and show them the value that you're providing to them through Level and through your RMM. So really excited about these features. And actually, we have a pretty big 2025 planned. As we were talking just last week with Jason and the team, it's going to be a packed year. We got a lot of great features, so I'm sure you guys will be excited to see that. But I wanted to show you guys kind of where we're headed over the next few months. And without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump into the demo, which is what you guys are all here for. And I want to start kind of covering where we came from, patch policies. So I'll create just like a little sample policy here. First, I'll point out that we do have this blog post link here where we cover in detail why we're getting rid of them, but I'm going to just give you just a quick rundown here. And the first big reason of shifting away from patch policies is just the limited targeting that you have with patch policies. I can only target devices through tags. So I could say, like, if it has workstation or server, it's going to be patched with this policy. The problem is this doesn't really give you any flexibility. If I need exceptions, if I need to handle certain groups of devices differently, maybe I want to target devices by group or custom filled. There's just very limited possibilities here. So that's one of the reasons why automations is a better approach for this. Next, and perhaps more importantly, is the ability to control what happens before a patch window and after a patch window. Like, what if you want to do extra things like patch third-party software, which is another thing that you can't really do within patch policies. Further, if one of these updates fails, there's no ability for you to have an alert created within Level. You just have to rely solely on the notifications that we send post-patch. And also there's no retry. So if one of these patches fails, we're not able to retry that patch. And we also have limited ability to track the patch across reboots. So if a particular patch, this is more common with larger patches like 22H2, if it installs successfully and the device reboots, sometimes Windows will roll back that patch. And with patch policy, we don't have any insight that the patch was rolled back, but with automations, we're tracking that across device reboots. So in general, it's just going to be better all around. And I'm sure as we dive into creating this, you'll see why. So let's go ahead and start with creating a new consolidated patch policy. So I'll just call it this. All right. So first step here is going to be determine what schedule at which we want to patch our devices. And for now, let's just say we want to do every Monday and Friday at 12 a.m. And then next we need to decide what devices are we going to target. And this is really where you have a lot more power. Of course, we could just patch everything, but we can also patch, like maybe I just want to patch Windows and Mac devices with this pipeline, whatever you want in that regard. We can also target groups. So if I wanted to just patch ABC Dental or the YMCA and Aspen, I could just select those groups. But just like with patch policies, we can also target tags. So like maybe I want to patch every device that has the managed tag. So this is really common for MSPs to have some type of managed tag. And these are the devices that they're actively managing and they want to keep updated. And so we'll go ahead and do that. I'm just going to say, let's say weekly patching, Monday and Friday at 12 a.m. So this detailed description kind of gives me a good overview when I'm looking at the automation later. I can see exactly when this runs. Now let's dive into what are the various actions that you can do from a patching standpoint in Level. And we'll start with just installing Windows updates. And this is going to look exactly like a patch policy. So nothing big changing here. So we select which category of updates we want to install. Then we decide, do we want to delay these updates for stability reasons? So maybe we delay this by 3 days. Let's delay our rollups by 7 days. We'll delay our service packs by 14. And you can kind of see how we're building out a schedule that we want to apply to all of our clients, kind of like the best practices for this. So I'm going to go with this. This is probably pretty good. I've delayed everything that I think I care about delaying here. We have a couple of additional options. I'll cover them just in case. One, of course, if an update requires reboot, we can do that. I generally recommend just leaving this setting off and using a monitor to push devices to reboot based on uptime instead. And then we also have this loop until complete option. This is really useful for setting up a brand new device. If you've ever seen, like, you install an update, the device reboots and there's 100 more updates. So this is going to get around that for provisioning that new device. Again, here I can utilize conditionals if I'm patching multiple operating systems, which I am in this case. So I'll lock this down to just running on our Windows devices. And I'll give this a name, install Windows updates. Okay, so now we're patching Windows devices. This is mimicking a patch policy that you could have created with patch policies. We can do the same thing for Mac and Linux. So we'll just go ahead and install those as well. Maybe delay both of them by 7 days. And we'll do the same conditional limit here. And lastly, let's go ahead and do our Linux updates. And I'm just going to select all of the categories here and install Linux updates. So now we have a very simple consolidated policy that's patching Mac, Windows, and Linux. That's pretty much it in terms of just moving from the old way of patching to the new way of patching. But let's go a step deeper here and kind of make this more in depth. I'm going to do that by actually just making this a dedicated policy for Windows. And so I'm going to call it Windows patching. And I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. I'm going to add another conditional here, which is a benefit of having this trigger capability, is we can limit this by multiple things. So I could say where it's Windows, I could add another one where the group is not equal to YMCA. So this would be an example of like, I need to add an exception. I need to exclude YMCA from this patch policy. You can do that. And this is a culmination. So these conditions are stacked. All of them must be true. It must have the manage tag and it must be Windows in order to enter this automation. And so now that we've locked this down to Windows, I no longer need the Windows conditional here because the trigger's only going to allow Windows devices to enter. So let's dive into some of the more advanced things that we can do. For starters, we can of course upgrade the third-party software installed on the device through WinGet. There's over 7,000 packages in the WinGet repository covering everything from Zoom and Adobe Reader and Firefox and Chrome. So this is a great option for updating a lot of that third-party software. So I'm going to say update third-party applications. Next, one of the things I mentioned was the ability to retry if patches were failing, and we can do that right here under this retries option. So I like to set that to 2 or 3, and we can do that for both of these actions. And this is going to kind of help reduce noise. So if there's an issue once or twice, we're not going to necessarily create an alert right away. We're going to try to fix that. Let's try to update it 1 more time, 2 more times. So now we're doing already more than we could do previously with patch policies. We're updating Windows and third-party software. We could, of course, notify the user as well. Right, so here we have some notification here that their computer may be a little slow as we're updating it. But we can also do other things. Like let's say we wanted to create a system restore point to do a backup prior to installing this update. Well, no problem, we can just run a script. And I believe I have one called restore point. So we can just expand that. Yep, Windows create restore point. And it's gonna ask me for a name that I can map it to. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create this. We'll call it restore point name. And I'm gonna name it like level update. So now we're going to create a restore point as part of doing this update. So name that. We could also do one post update if we want. I could just clone this action and drag it below. Another really neat capability here is not relying just on that email report that you get post patching, but using Level's ability to create alerts if there's an issue with patching a device. So how you would do that is if we go to this install Windows Update action and we go to advanced options, on action failure, we want to suppress and continue, right? We want it to continue doing the other actions in this pipeline. But I also want to save the output of this action to a variable that I can reference later. So I'm going to call this Windows Update Status. And I'm just going to save the output of this action to that variable. We're going to do the same thing here with updating third-party software. I'm going to suppress and continue, and we're going to create a new one here. And set that as the output variable. Now we can start creating alerts when there's issues. So here, let's say Windows Update failed. So we have something like that. We're unable to install updates after multiple attempts. We're going to fire a warning. And I'm going to include the payload right from the Windows Update status. So that's going to be included with the alert. So I'll know which update failed for this endpoint. But we don't want an alert to be created every patch window. We only want an alert to be created if this install Windows Update action fails. So again, we can use a conditional for this. And we can say if the action status of install Windows Update is equal to failed, only in that case is Level going to create an alert for this device. So now we have one, if there's an issue with Windows updates, we can do the same thing here for third-party software. I didn't put it in my clipboard. It was unable to install updates after multiple attempts. All right, so fire a warning. I'm going to include the status with that. And again, same thing here. We don't want this to happen every time. We only want it to happen if the update third-party application action fails. So now when we go through and a patch window runs, we're going to notify the user their device might be slow. We're going to create a system restore point. We're going to install the updates with retries. We're going to update the third-party applications, again, with retries, and then we're going to create alerts for any device that fails either Windows updates or third-party patching with the details associated with that failure so that you can immediately respond and investigate that issue. So I did want to touch on how can we go about adding exceptions for deviations? Like let's say all of these devices are managed, but ABC Dental needs to be on a different schedule for some reason or another. I touched on this. We can just dive into this trigger. And so again, we have where it's managed and its platforms Windows. We can add another conditional here, and we can say where the group is not ABC Dental. And that would allow us to build a specialized policy that only targets ABC Dental. So again, if you have deviations from your norm, you can do that very easily and add exceptions for that with your patch policies. Or sorry, with your patch automations. I do want to pause and just see if there's any questions before I kind of dive into a few other areas.
Yeah. Jacob, there is a question in the chat here. How do these patch policies interact / override built-in patch policies from manufacturer and/or policies from domain controllers or group policy for Windows? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. So just a few things. If you have a level patch policy and a level automation, that's probably not a good idea. So you should get rid of one and then move to the other. But in regards to what if Windows itself is trying to patch? With Windows, you have pretty limited ability to delay patches and control what's installed and when. So what happens is anytime an automation is targeting a device, anytime a patch automation is targeting a device, Level will actually update the registry and tell that device that patching is managed externally. And that way patches aren't installed automatically on that endpoint. You're solely relying on Level as your patching solution. Did that answer your question? I think that was Graham. Did that answer your question, Graham? Sweet. What else?
Yeah, there was one more question from Graham. He said, if you have mostly laptops that folks take home and aren't always on a set time, what happens if devices are offline or unavailable at that scheduled time? Say that end user is waking up in the morning for a meeting and they really don't have time for an update in the morning when it comes back online.
Yeah, great question. So with patch policies, when a device, and this is with automations in general, anytime an automation runs on a device, if the device is offline, it will just queue up on this first step and wait. So to answer your question, if they take that device home and they come back Monday morning and they turn it on, it's going to go through and do these actions, even though it's outside of this maintenance window, which is why I don't recommend having like the reboot option on here, because for the most part, updates can be installed behind the scenes. We have discussed adding a conditional here where you can say to exclude devices that are offline if you only want this to happen, now and only for devices online. But as of right now, we don't have that action unless status is it. Hold on, I lied. So we can use status and do that now. I think Forbes added that for me. So if I want to only do the devices that are online to ensure that nothing ever happens outside of this Monday, Wednesday at midnight schedule, I can add a conditional status and force the device to be online. That way you won't update outside of that schedule. Does that make sense? All right. I do want to show you before we close out here for some more questions, the resource library. So here's our website. We go up to resources. There's this new library now. And I'm actually going to cheat, and instead of creating some automations with you, tedious, like one at a time, I'm just going to quickly import these. So if I want this macOS patching automation, I can import that directly into my Level account now. And we'll see it comes in. And the nice thing is anytime you import something from our library, we disable the trigger. So you don't have to worry about it automatically doing things. But here's an example of like a dedicated Mac policy. And we can see it's targeting, our Mac devices on Sunday at midnight. We're installing Mac updates. And we have that same configuration for generating an alert as I talked about before. But we have a bunch of resources. So Linux patching, Mac patching, Windows patching, the big cross-platform one where we do everything. We have automations for prompting the user to reboot or installing Office. I think I might have a whole patching category. I do. Yeah. So here we also have like, if I wanted to do Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrades, like a major upgrade, I just click into this automation and import it, and that will bring in a big pipeline for me that can handle everything we need, doing hardware checks, notifying the user daily, and then once they approve, upgrading to Windows 11, creating an alert if there's an issue, prompting the user to reboot, restarting, and then removing the upgrade tag. So we're, again, going to be fleshing out more and more automations here as we go, but I would recommend checking out this library. I think it's going to save a lot of time. And if you have something really cool that you're doing with Level, please submit it to our library so that we can share it with others. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, there was one more in the chat. And will it be possible to exclude specific KBs for servers, for example?
Great question. So right now, I'll agree, it is kind of tedious to do this. If we go to a device and I wanted to disable an update or block an update, I can hit this hide button. And what that does is actually hides it on the device too, but it hides it from Level as well. But I can't do this in bulk across all of my devices. I can't go to this updates view and just hide a bunch. If I wanted to do that, I would have to use automations or something to facilitate that. But I would say in March or April, like we're getting a little bit further out, but it is definitely our goal to allow you to block a patch globally across all of your devices without utilizing automations or scripting. And we have some big improvements coming to this update view, including like consolidating it so the same update is only shown once. So you'll see like, hey, this update's available on 30 devices. Do you want to install it on all 30? Do you want to block it on all 30? We're going to be adding some charts and graphs here. So this view is going to be changing in the next 2 months or so. And as part of that, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to add filtering here and blocking and a bunch of other capabilities in that regard. Charles said he just wrote a PowerShell script to do the Windows 11 upgrade. Sorry about that, but you might want to import ours and just see if we're doing anything that maybe you're not. Jeff mentioned, is there an option to revert updates? That's a great question. Right now, we don't have any rollback or reversion on updates. You could, of course, do that through a script if you wanted to, but in general, we find as long as you're delaying by an appropriate length and you utilize some best practices with like canary devices to test your updates, there really isn't much need to roll back patches, but it is something that is on our roadmap. I don't have any ETA for that, but maybe 2025. I just don't know right now. What else? Any other question? Anything else I can show you about anything in the app while we're here?
Someone mentioned, Jacob, about is it possible through automations to check Windows events? So I was just going to mention that we can write a script for that. And if you need help with that script at all, you can reach out to support and we can help you write a script to check Windows event logs.
Yeah, and you'll be able to import it in one click as well. So that'll save a bunch of time. But that is one of the monitors that I know we've talked about adding. So hopefully pretty soon we're going to be adding a bunch of new monitor types here. And one of them is going to be event log monitoring. But yeah, stay tuned for that. Fabian asked about BitLocker management. That is like a surprise update. But yeah, I would say in February, early February, we're going to come out with a new built-in automation action that will allow you to encrypt Windows, Mac, and Linux devices and manage that encryption without doing any scripting or coding. On our resource library, we do have something now for BitLocker that you could import, but it's not going to be quite as nice as the one with the native actions that's coming next month. Primarily because the one that with native actions is going to be cross-platform. So it'll work on Mac, Windows, and Linux. It'll handle rotation and a bunch of other things. So stay tuned for that. But if you need something short-term, you could try using this automation. What's the best way to schedule time to build automations with your team? Great question. Honestly, it's tough to kind of build automations like on a support call. So what I recommend is just give it a little bit of thought, decide what you want your automation to do, and then shoot an email to support, or you can click this icon in the bottom of the site and you can contact support directly in app and just say, hey, I'm looking for an automation that does X, Y, and Z. Can you build that for me or help me do that? And yeah, we're happy to do that. We'll build that for you and then just share a link and you can import that into your account and test it out. Give us some feedback. Tell us if you need any changes. And I think that's the best way back and forth. It's really tough to write scripts and code on a call. So yeah, that's my recommendation there.
Another question here. Can you already show the new BitLocker / file vault management?
I don't think I can. Let me cheat and see. I'll go to our dev environment and just see if there happens to be any actions. I read about this just yesterday, so I know we're working on it, but no, I can't show it now, but there will be a new action right here under security for BitLocker. I think it's just going to be encryption management, and we'll detect whether it's Windows, and if it's Windows, we'll use BitLocker. If it's Mac, we'll use File Vault, and if it's Linux, we'll use Lux. And it will handle enabling and rotating the key all as like a built-in action. What else? Any other questions? Anything else I can show? Jason, anything that you want to mention that maybe I left out?
Sometimes there's a question of whether, we set up patching on a small group of devices before we push out to a bigger group of devices. And I think it maybe we could show that in an automation, we can have a wait for approval action. So you could have your small set tagged appropriately, and it will install updates to those. And then it sits and waits for approval for an admin to come in and manually approve the pipeline to continue on for the rest of your.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So I could have an entirely separate automation. I could also have multiple triggers on the same automation. So if I wanted to target just a set of Canary devices, I could do that based on group. And then when they enter this automation, like Jason said, we can have it pause and wait for approval. And that can be your decision, likely you'd want it to happen here, of whether updates should happen on devices that aren't those Canary or test devices. That was a great point.
Alternately, there's another question that scenario that we run into is, what if you need to do rolling updates on servers? Let's say you've got servers in a cluster or redundant, whatever, domain controllers, whatever, and you don't want to reboot them at the same time. And we would do that with tags. We would have to have a tag that would classify the first group as, patching group A, and then a second set of tags that were patching group B, and then you would just have multiple actions that would target those at different times.
So here's our kind of like production account here, and you can kind of see we're doing that right here. So we update different data centers on different schedules, and yeah, we target that based on group or based on tag, like Jason said. Awesome. Yeah, it can get really tricky if you need reboots to happen in a certain order, which we're in a similar boat. Like we can't reboot our database server or reboot our application servers and then database servers. Like everything has to happen in a very precise order. And that's a great use case for automations where you have a lot of control. You can even add arbitrary delays to your pipeline if you needed to wait like 10 minutes or something. We can just add a delay to wait until a server is fully up. We could even run scripts to determine that the server is up and responding to requests before we patch the next device. So patching can really get as complicated or as involved as you want it to be with your automations.
There is a pretty sweet action in patching where you can, or at least in automations, where you can create an alert. Let's say when your Canary endpoints, it'll create an alert letting you know if it was a success or if it failed out, and then it'll wait for approval. That's a really sweet action I think would be useful to show.
Yep, that's that create alert action. I don't think very many people are using that yet. We just rolled it out maybe a month or two ago, but it's super handy now to be able to create alerts from within an automation. And if you want, it can go to your email, but I just use this alerts view at the top. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'll kind of give you guys back some time here. Can we resolve alerts with an automation as well? Not yet, but that makes a ton of sense, and you should definitely be able to do that. So soon, I'll bring that up with the team. I don't even know if we thought about that, which is a little embarrassing on our side. It was just like we knew we needed the ability to create alerts, but yeah, definitely makes sense that you should be able to resolve them from an automation as well.
One real quick thing, Jacob, on top of Jason's idea of like having updates rolling, would you suggest chaining automations, like at the end having an automation add a tag, patching B, like have a delay and add patching B, or would you not recommend that for our users?
Yeah, you totally could. That's how I trigger other automations all the time, is by applying or removing tags to trigger those automations. Graham says, can you set level to alert you to the status of updates, like for Windows servers, but not take action? Yeah, you could definitely do that. I think I actually have an automation that does this. So, oh no, I got logged out. All right, hold on. Sorry. I have the password somewhere. All right. Okay, so I believe this automation here installs security updates. You can see that this is actually there's no schedule on this. It's actually firing from a monitor. So if I go and look at this monitor here, oh, it's this one. We can see like it's looking to see if there is a specific type of update. And if there is a specific type of update, it creates an alert. I ran a remediation here, but all you would need to do is not run the remediation and you would have just the alert. Unfortunately, I don't have any devices with updates for that, but yeah, if that were the case, it would show up there. What else? Let's see. Jeff, is there a way to set up dynamic tags? Yeah, totally. So let's go to our, do I have like a
default tag, right?
Yeah, thanks. So right here we can see I'm conditionally applying these tags, in this case, based on if the type is workstation, but like an MSP example here, maybe I want to apply the managed tag if the custom field managed is set to true. Right, so if my client is managed, I'm going to apply the managed tag. So that's one example of being dynamic. Another example, we'll go back to this resource library. And I have this automated service-based tagging example. So we'll import this one. And you'll see, oh no. All right, that one's probably not ready to be imported yet, but I can show you exactly what it's doing. All we're doing is running a script that gathers the running services on a device. So let's see if I have that. Windows. Okay, so you can run a script to do anything, and then you just save the output of that script to a variable, and then you can reference that variable in future conditions, right? So if exchange is present, then we'll add the exchange tag. In fact, I think that's a good example. I probably have something for that. Exchange, no, I don't, not yet. We're gonna add a lot more to this library, but one of the ones that I would suggest checking out is the service-based tagging, and I'll get that fixed right after this, but you can definitely dynamically tag devices, and our support team can help you build out those automations. What else? We're now experimenting with maintenance windows in our monitoring environment, Zabbix, which creates a trigger for certain groups of devices and then runs a webhook to the level API and starts a patch automation for that group. That's really neat. And just to cover kind of what he's talking about is he's using this webhook trigger, and he has something external that's triggering the automation, and you can limit this webhook to a certain group of devices. And pretty soon you'll actually be able to pass in variables through a webhook as well, which is going to be really helpful for like setting and defining certain variables and custom fields dynamically. All right. Any last minute questions? I hope this was helpful for everyone.
Two that I think we missed. Is there some tag / option to exclude, or to always exclude for anything other than alerts? Be answered. My apologies. That's on me. Sorry, guys.
Oh, cool. Fabian, alerts are only possible via mail currently. Will there be anything for Teams, Discord in the future? Yeah, I would really love to have some automation actions that let you like send a Teams message or a Discord message, or even an email or a text right here in an automation pipeline. So yeah, it'll be coming at some point in the future. Definitely recommend you guys go again to our website. Here at resources, we have this roadmap section. And not only does that show you kind of what we're working on and where we're going, but it also allows you to submit feature requests. So if you have ideas or things that you think would make the platform better, please submit a feature request and upvote those features so that we know what's important to you guys and we can prioritize that accordingly. All right, I think I got everyone. If anything else that comes to your mind as you start playing with this, just reach out to support. We're happy to help in any way we can. And yeah, I look forward to next month. I'm not sure what the topic is going to be, but we'll have it on something awesome and exciting, I'm sure. Yep, Graham, we're gonna, right after this, we'll post the recording on YouTube, LinkedIn, everywhere else. Jacob types so fast I need to watch at 0.5 speed. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And I'll make sure that this is up on our YouTube later today. Anything else, Jason, Derek?
Yeah. If anybody wasn't aware, we do run an indefinite trial for 10 endpoints. If anybody wants to take advantage of that, feel free to let me know. I'll drop my email in the chat. And let me know what email you used to create the account, and we'll modify the status to indefinite. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Reach out to support if you need any help.
Sweet.